Hank Hill's wife, discussed what to do with their money, but Hank disagreed with her suggestions and rejected them. She urged him to invest the money, emphasizing that time is money. Hank countered that slow and steady wins the race, and then left. Later, Hank spent time with his friends when John arrived with red corn, which they all enjoyed. Dale mentioned to John that Nancy would love the red corn's taste, and John revealed he had been supplying Nancy with it for some time. When Hank asked John how much he had sold, John replied that he hadn't sold any. Hank agreed to help John on his farmland, and they purchased a trap. Meanwhile, Bobby went on a date with Connie to enjoy classical music. During their conversation, Connie disclosed that she no longer played the violin. Shortly after, they both fell asleep, disturbing other audience members. Elsewhere, Hank and his friends were preparing a barbecue when they asked Hank for money. To avoid the topic, Hank suggested they discuss it at the next meeting and began eating pork ribs. Boomhauer shared his business plan with Peggy, who was eager to invest half her savings. But Hank explained that's not how investments work and tried to educate her on the subject. He suggested they visit the bank to discuss it further, and Peggy agreed. At the bank, they met Mr. Colin and asked whether the investment was a good or bad idea. Colin stated it was a great idea, which surprised Hank. Hank then challenged Colin, asking why he didn't invest in it himself if it was such a great idea. Colin agreed to become one of their business partners. Boomhauer and Peggy shook hands with Colin, welcoming him as their business partner, leaving Hank speechless. The next morning, Hank poured himself brewed black coffee. Peggy was presenting their upcoming business to Dale Gribble, Colin, Cindy, and Boomhauer in the kitchen. Hank asked what they were doing there, and Cindy introduced herself. Hank stated he wasn't interested in their venture, and when Hank asked if Bill was investing in the company, Bill clarified he wasn't an investor, but was handling field operations as a salaried employee. Hank questioned how Bill would be paid with no money in the company, to which Peggy explained it was deferred compensation. Hank dismissed this, calling Bill a glorified intern, but Peggy insisted it wasn't true. Connor interrupted, stating only company officers could speak, prompting an angry response from Hank. Peggy invited Hank to join the company, but he closed the laptop and walked out. On the balcony, Bobby told Joseph about his date with Connie. Connie then called Bobby, mentioning a surprise she prepared before hanging up. Hank returned to the room where Peggy, Bill, Boomhauer, and Dale were working, shocked by how many people had invested without, as he put it, killing a single pig. Peggy explained how the business worked and handed him a brochure. Hank took it to Buck, asking if it was a good idea and expressing skepticism that it seemed too good to be true. Returning to the group, Hank announced he rejected the offer based on Buck's opinion. Before he could finish, Buck appeared on a Zoom call and joined as a business partner. Bill then pushed Hank out of the room, saying they were discussing something personal. The next day, Hank returned home to find everyone celebrating the success of their investment. He asked Buck how he managed to sell a 2-week-old company in just 2 days. Peggy showed Hank her earnings, and the group teased him about his decision to opt out. Hank insisted he was content with his choice. Nolan Rayan arrived with 4 cars, and when Hank inquired why he was there, Rayan revealed he had also invested in the company. They all reveled in the rising trade value. Hank retreated to his room, sighed at his reflection, and checked his slow and steady investments, contrasting them with the rapidly rising Pigforce stock. He clicked the buy share button. Meanwhile, Connie took Bobby to a bounce house as her surprise. A child mocked Bobby's jumping, upsetting Connie. They jumped higher together, hand in hand, but the same child collided with Bobby, causing both him and Connie to fall, injuring Connie's shoulder. Back in the backyard, Hank noticed a sharp decline in the company's trade graph. Buck announced the company was now worthless, leaving Hank disheartened. Bobby took Connie to the hospital, where he detailed her condition to the nurse. Peggy, meanwhile, was taking down decorations when Hank admitted he had bought a share just before the crash. Peggy revealed she sold her shares beforehand, preserving their money. When Hank asked why, she explained she also thought the growth was too fast and trusted Hank's philosophy. At the hospital cafeteria, Bobby bought snacks for Connie. He tried to express his feelings, but Connie misunderstood, thinking he wanted to break up. Bobby clarified he felt they lacked the connection they had as kids. Connie admitted she missed the old Bobby, but loved the new Bobby and was unsure of their next steps. She called Bobby the bravest person she knew for his decisiveness. Meanwhile, Hank hid behind bushes, watching a boar enter the trap he and John had set, which was working successfully. He saw Peggy, Dale Gribble, and Boomhauer herding more boars into the trap, relieving John's concerns about the animals. John presented his red corn business to Peggy and Hank, who both agreed to invest in it.